Okay, so today we're going to continue solving logarithmic equations. However, today we are going to have only one log instead of two, okay? Yesterday we saw stuff like this. We saw stuff like this where you could cancel out both of the logs and just solve the rest, okay? Today, we're only going to have a single log on one side and maybe something on the other side, okay? So the first step is you're going to isolate the log. Then you're going to change it to an exponential problem and solve. So let me show you guys how we do that. Okay, so right now I have log base 3. Everyone draw an arrow to this and write base 3. Okay, the inverse of a log with base 3 is an exponential with base 3, okay? Let me write that over here. Log base 3, the inverse is an exponential with base 3. Okay, these are inverses of each other. They undo one another, okay? So over here, since my base is 3, I'm going to put the base is 3 and put the base is 3 here and turn it into an exponential problem. Okay. These cancel out because they are inverses of each other. Let's write down what is left over. I'm left with x minus 1 equals 3 to the power of 0. And now we solve. Do you guys know what 3 to the power of 0 is? Yes, anything to the power of 0 is just 1. And then we just need to finish solving. So I'll just add 1. So my answer is 2. Now, just like yesterday, we have to plug it back into the original problem to make sure the whole thing stays positive, okay? So I'm going to write down the original problem. The original problem is x minus 1. Okay, so I'm going to erase this x and put a 2 inside because we just said x is 2. And 2 minus 1 is 1. That's positive. So this is an answer. It's not extraneous. Remember, we cannot have a negative inside of a log. Okay? All right, let's try a different one. Okay, guys, the base is not given. So when the base is not given, what is my base? 10. So guys, you can imagine a 10 right there. So since my base is 10, I'm going to turn this into an exponential problem with a base of 10. And the beautiful thing about inverses is that they cancel out. So all of this is gone. They cancel out. What I am left with is negative 2x plus 30 equals 10 to the power of 1. And guys, what is 10 to the power of 1? Just 10. It's itself. I'm going to pause here because you guys can solve the rest. This is algebra 1 from here. All right, guys, continuing our problem, you should have solved and got x equals 10. Did everyone get that? Okay, but before we just box our answer and move on, we need to make sure that this is not extraneous. So we got to plug this back in. So I wrote down the original problem, and I'm going to plug in a 10 there. Guys, what is negative 2 times 10? Negative 20 plus 30. Is this negative or positive? Yep, it'll be a 10 in there. So that's okay. As long as we don't get a negative in here, we're good. So this is your answer, x equals 10. Next problem. This one we're going to have to do a little bit more at the beginning, okay? So let's look at the steps in our notes. The very first step is to isolate the log or ln. You need to isolate it first. The first two problems we did were very easy. We didn't have to isolate it. It was already by itself. This time it is not isolated. There's a 5 and a 2 on the outside. We have to get rid of those first. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to subtract 5 and subtract 5. So what I'm left over with is 2 times log base 4 of x equals 11 minus 5 is 6. We're almost done isolating. Now we need to get rid of that 2. These are being multiplied together, okay? There's no symbol in the middle. When they're right next to each other, they're being multiplied. That means I need to divide by 2. That would be the opposite of multiplication. Okay, so now I'm left with log base 4 of x equals 6 divided by 2 is 3. Okay, now it's isolated. Do you guys have an idea of what I'm going to do next? What's my base? Everyone write that down. Draw an arrow. This is base 4. So if my base is 4, you're going to raise it as an exponent, and you're going to use base 4. So guys, this is what cancels out. 4 to the power of log base 4, they cancel out. So what we are left with is an x equals 4 to the power of 3. That is what we are left with. So guys, what is 4 times 4 times 4? 64. So that's your answer. Oh, let's not move too fast. We have to plug it back into the log and make sure it's not negative on the inside of that log. So instead of an x, I'm going to put a 64. Is that positive on the inside? Yep, so this is good. Always check your answer. Always check. Next, we have an ln this time, but still I need to isolate it. What do I do first to isolate, guys? Good, thank you. Divide by 12. So my answer will be ln x equals negative 36 divided by 12 is negative 3. Okay, do you guys remember what the base is for an ln? E. Guys, write that down. Please write this down. Your base is E. Your base is E. So guys, what you are going to do is make E your base. Those are exponents. Those are now exponents. We made E the base. Okay. E and ln always cancel out. So my answer is x equals e to the negative 3. You can just keep it like that. Or you can write it like this, 1 over e to the power of 3. Remember, when you have a negative exponent, you just flip it, make it positive. Okay, so that's your final answer. Oh, let's check it. If you plug in this answer into here, it's still positive. And just in case you're curious, E is approximately 2.718. And it just goes on forever. Next, we have to isolate this. I'm going to pause here and let you guys try this one. This is just like the previous one. You need to isolate it first, just like these type of problems. The example is in your notes. So guys, use the example that I just did to try to do this one. Okay, so y'all did pretty good on this one. You knew to subtract 2. And guys, if you already got this one, move on to the next problem. Go ahead and start the next one if you got it. divide by 3. So you get ln of 2x equals 2. Now, the base of an ln, write this down. The base is e for ln. So we're going to do big E's right here. E and ln cancel out. So we are left with 2x equals e to the power of 2. Now you just divide both sides by 2. And you can just leave your answer like this. And e is a positive number. So e is 2.7 approximately. E is approximately 2.7. So imagine 2.7 times 2.7 divided by 2. That's a positive number. Okay? So if you plug it into here, it'll still be positive. So that's good. Next one. We have to isolate it. So guys, you should have started isolating it. You should have subtracted 3 first. Now we have negative log base 2 of x squared minus 6x equals negative 1 minus 3 is negative 4. Okay, now get rid of this negative. So divide by negative 1, it cancels out. Divide by negative 1, just make them both positive. So this is log base 2 of x squared minus 6x equals 4. Okay, so we know how to isolate. Now comes the algebra 2 part. My base is 2, guys, so what will I do? We can't do anything unless this log is gone. How did we cancel out things previously? Okay, so I'm going to do 2 and 2. These are exponential problems now. All right, guys, look. 2 to the power of log base 2, those cancel out. It is gone. What we are left with, I'll write it up here, is x squared minus 6x equals 2 to the power of 4. Now, guys, help me out. Let's evaluate 2 to the power of 4. What is 2 times 2? Class, I want to hear you. 4. Times another 2? Times another 2? There we go. So that means 2 to the power of 4 is 16. All right, guys, this is a quadratic. That means we have to factor. We're going to have to do an eye chart, but first we need to make sure everything goes on the same side. So I'm going to move this 16 over. It'll be x squared minus 6x equals negative 16. Bring it all over to one side. And I always want this to be positive, so don't move the stuff over here. I want x squared to be positive. Okay, so guys, we need 2 numbers that multiply to negative 16, but add to negative 6. Can y'all think of 2 numbers? Yes, 2 and negative 8. Negative 8 times 2 is negative 16. Negative 8 plus 2 is negative 6. So those work perfectly. Those will go into your factors. This is how you write it in factor form. And then you solve. So if you solve this, you'll get x is 8 and x is negative 2. Okay, guys, we have to check. We cannot just accept both of these answers. We have to check. So guys, let's do this together. I'm going to erase this over here. You should have that written down, hopefully. We're going to check over here. I need y'all to copy. Just this inside needs to be positive, okay? So the inside is x squared minus 6x. I need that to be positive. I'm going to erase the x. Plug in an 8. What's 8 squared? Minus 48. Is this going to be a positive answer? Yep, so that's okay. Let's make sure the -2 will also be positive. So we're gonna plug in a -2. What's -2 times -2? A -6 and a -2? Positive 12, okay, so this is positive. So this is also an answer. And that is the end of our notes. Do I have any questions before you go? How did I get -2? So this was positive. You equal it to 0, then you subtract 2 from both sides. So you get x equals -2.